was 19, pregnant, and standing in the rain when the man I loved looked me in the eyes and said, "I'm not ready for this," and walked away. I'm 58 now, and I still remember that moment like it never left me. The smell of wet pavement, the sound of his footsteps fading, and the silence that followed, louder than anything I had ever heard. I stood there, one hand on my stomach, the other gripping the last piece of my heart as it broke. His name was Daniel. And that was the last day I saw him. I went home that night, soaked, shaking, and scared. My parents were strict, traditional, the kind who believed in doing things the right way, and I had done everything the wrong way. When I told them I was pregnant, my mother cried. My father didn't speak to me for weeks, but they didn't throw me out. They didn't hug me either. They just adjusted. And so did I. I got a job at a small diner 2 blocks away. Morning shifts, evening shifts, anything I could get. My feet would ache, my back would scream, and sometimes I'd go into the bathroom just to cry quietly so no one could hear. But every time I placed my hand on my growing belly, I reminded myself, you don't get to fall apart, not anymore. When my son was born, everything changed. I named him Ethan. He had the smallest fingers and the strongest grip, like he was already holding on to life with everything he had. The first time he looked at me, I didn't see fear anymore. I saw purpose. Being a single mother in America isn't easy, especially when you start with nothing. There were nights I skipped meals so Ethan could eat, birthdays where I couldn't afford presents, so I made them, school days when I'd drop him off with a smile and then sit in my car wondering how I'd pay the next bill. But I never let him feel the struggle. To him, I was strong. To him, everything was okay. Ethan was different. Even as a kid, he had this quiet determination. He didn't complain. He didn't ask for much, and he watched everything. I remember one night, he must have been about 10, he saw me counting coins at the kitchen table. He didn't say anything. He just came over, hugged me, and whispered, "I'm going to take care of you one day, Mom." I smiled, but inside, I broke, because I never wanted that burden on him. Years passed. Ethan grew, smarter, stronger, more focused. He got a scholarship to college, business and technology. I cried the day he left, but not from sadness, from pride, because everything I had sacrificed, it meant something. Then one day, everything changed, again. I was sitting in my living room, the same house I'm in now, when Ethan walked in wearing a suit I had never seen before. Expensive, sharp, confident. He sat across from me, took my hands and said, "Mom, I did it." I laughed. "Did what?" He smiled. "I built a company, and it's worth more than I ever imagined." I didn't understand at first. But then I saw it in his eyes, the same determination, the same promise he made at 10 years old. Within a few years, my son became a billionaire. A billionaire. The boy I raised with nothing now had everything. But what made me proud wasn't the money. It was the man he became, kind, humble, grounded. And then, one evening, he told me something I wasn't ready to hear. I found him. My heart stopped. Found who? He looked at me gently. My dad. I hadn't heard that word in decades. Dad, he was just a ghost to me now, a memory I buried. But Ethan, he went looking. Daniel was older, worn down by life. He had worked odd jobs, struggled, no stability, no family, no legacy. Ethan didn't go to him with anger. He went with a job, at his company. When Ethan told me, I was confused. Why would you help him after what he did to us? Ethan looked at me and said something I will never forget. Because you didn't raise me to be bitter. You raised me to be better. The day Daniel walked into Ethan's office, he didn't recognize him at first, but when he did, he broke. Tears, regret, silence. Ethan didn't yell, didn't accuse. He just said, "I'm not here to punish you. Life already did that. I'm here to give you a chance to become the man you couldn't be back then." Daniel took the job, not as a favor, but as a second chance. Months passed. Then one day, there was a knock on my door. I opened it, and there he was. Older, weaker, but it was him. For a moment, we just stared at each other. No words. Just 40 years of silence between us. Then he said with a trembling voice, "I'm sorry." And for the first time, I believed him. I didn't take him back. Some things don't go back to what they were. But I forgave him. Not for him, for me. Now at 58, I sit in this same home, not as the scared 19-year-old girl I once was, but as a mother who turned pain into purpose. A woman who raised a son not with wealth, but with values, and a reminder that life doesn't always give you what you deserve. But sometimes it gives you something greater, a second chance. When Daniel stepped into Ethan's company for the first time, he didn't look like a man who belonged there. The glass doors, the polished floors, people walking with confidence, purpose. And then there was him. Shoulders slightly bent, eyes unsure, hands that had worked hard, but never built anything lasting. Ethan didn't give him a corner office. He gave him a simple job, operations assistant, entry level. The same kind of job Daniel had run from his whole life. The first few weeks were quiet. Daniel barely spoke. He showed up early, left late, and kept his head down. Some employees whispered, "Isn't that the CEO's father? Why is he working there?" But Ethan never treated him differently. No special privileges, no shortcuts, just expectations. One afternoon, Ethan walked into the office area where Daniel was sorting files. For a moment, they just stood there. A son and the man who left him. Ethan broke the silence. "How's the work?" Daniel nodded. "It's honest." That word hung in the air. Honest. Something Daniel hadn't been all those years ago. At home, I would sometimes sit by the window, thinking about them. About how life had twisted itself into something I never imagined. The boy I raised was now guiding the man who abandoned us, and somehow there was no anger in it. Just something deeper. Something healing. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, Daniel changed. He asked questions, took notes, started improving. People noticed. Not because he was the CEO's father, but because he was trying. Really trying. One evening, Ethan came home late. I was in the kitchen making tea. He looked tired, but peaceful. "He stayed back again," Ethan said. "Who?" He smiled softly. "Him." That night, something shifted in me. For years, I had carried a version of Daniel in my mind, the man who walked away in the rain. But people aren't frozen in time. They change, sometimes too late, but sometimes just in time to make things right. It was nearly a year later when Ethan invited me to the company. "I want you to see something," he said. The building was bigger than I imagined. Modern, alive, full of energy, and as I walked through those halls, I saw pieces of my son everywhere. His discipline, his vision, his heart. Then we stopped near a conference room. Inside, Daniel was speaking, confidently, clearly, to a team that was listening, respecting him. I couldn't move. This was not the same man who stood at my door apologizing. This was someone rebuilt. Ethan leaned toward me and whispered, "He earned that." Later that day, Daniel walked up to me. This time, not as the past, but as the present. "I don't expect anything from you," he said. "I just wanted you to know I'm trying to become someone our son can be proud of. Our son." For the first time, those words didn't hurt. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw regret, but I also saw effort. And sometimes effort is the only apology life allows. Months later, Ethan hosted a company event, a celebration of growth, success, everything he had built. At the end of the night, he stepped onto the stage. The room went quiet. "I built this company from nothing," he said, "but I didn't build it alone." He looked at me, and my heart knew. "My mom," he continued, voice slightly shaking, "raised me with nothing, but gave me everything." There was applause, but I couldn't hear it, because in that moment, every struggle, every tear, every sleepless night, it all meant something. Then Ethan paused and looked toward Daniel. "And my father." The room shifted, silence again. Taught me the most important lesson of my life. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "He showed me what happens when you run away." A pause, and what it takes to come back and face it. No anger, no blame, just truth. Ethan stepped down from the stage, walked over, and placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder, not as a son seeking approval, but as a man offering respect. Now, as I sit here at 58 in the quiet of my home, realize something. Life didn't give me the love story I expected. It gave me something harder, something deeper, a story of loss, of resilience, of a boy who became a man without a father, and then became the reason that father learned how to be one. Some people leave your life and never return. Some come back, too late. But sometimes they come back just in time to remind you that people can change, that forgiveness is strength, and that the greatest success is not money, not power, but becoming the kind of person who breaks the cycle,